only one particular expedition had been there in these caves before us, and they had done, you know, exploration of the caves. And this particular project was to actually go find these lemur bones. They wanted the lower jaw of the lemur bone because they can take DNA samples from that. And so they were given permission to take 6 lower jaw bones. And we had with us, when we from the parks, we had wardens with us to make sure we didn't take more than 6, and we only took these jaw bones. And this is the skull of the Pakilima, obviously the top part. The lower jawbone, unfortunately, we couldn't find this particular one. There was an imprint, you can see just below there was an imprint of one. But these Pakylemus are extinct, and they wanted to find out about what time in period, you know, how many thousand years ago were these Pakylemus in these caves, and when were they dry? So that was the whole expedition. So what we had to do is we had to go down into these caves and locate these bones, take photographs of them, come back. The scientists would then choose which one of the photographs they wanted. Then we had to go back and map out the site so that we ensured they knew exactly where the skull was, where the bone was, where the rest of the vertebrae was, etc., and how it related in the cave itself, and then how that relate and how close any stalagmites were. Those are the ones that stick up. So they all had to be coordinated. So we had to dive down, and we found there was one particular passageway in the back of the main cave, in Avon, the cave, one of the caves named Avon, where you go in, and then there is a corkscrew, very tight corkscrew. It's in a V section like this, and it corkscrews down from 20 meters down to 40 meters. And you've got to go in it with one cylinder forward and one arm tucked in, and then I had to try and carry a camera. So it was quite a tight squeeze, and you'd go down this corkscrew, and halfway down we found these rooms. When I say rooms, they were only about let's say 10 square meters, and the height was about 1.5 meters height. So, and inside those rooms we found majority of bones. However, there were no this is in the main cave heading. If you see where Ryan is heading, you can see right in the back there we found a very small crevice there where we had to actually break through into there. So he's just going there to have a look at the moment. You can see there was a line we put in, the main line, and then later on we were just doing some explorations to see where, before we actually put a jump line on and started going into these smaller sections. We had loads of lights. I had video lights up, and I think we had about, altogether between the two of us, about 10 different lights, independent lights, video lights, backup lights, flashes from camera lights and flashlights and stuff like that. So we looked for these particular bones and only allowed to take 6. We found 10, of which only 4 of them were near a stalagmite. Now, I'll tell you the reasoning why they wanted to know where the stalagmite was, and that's because they wanted to age the cave. So what they were trying to do is say, okay, if these bones were around and the stalactite was around, then we can age the cave based on the depth of the cave, all the rings in the stalagmite, and we can get an estimate plus minus 1,000 years of when these caves were dry and when these animals were there and when they may have died. So it was quite important. So we brought up 10, and we had to map all these out, go back, check it with them. Then we had to get permission from the parks rangers that we were allowed to take those particular ones. We were allowed to bring up 10, so the scientists could choose which of the 10 they would like to have 6 of those. they chose their 6. We then had to mark on the maps which one they were choosing, and then the other ones we had to go and put them back exactly how we found them. And then the rangers wanted us to take another photograph to make sure they were back. So it was quite pedantic in their requirements. Even though the rangers had no idea really what they were looking at, to be quite honest, they wanted another photograph. Anyway, we gave them another photograph and assured them it was back. But while we're there, we found some other really strange bones. I found the skull of what I believe, and what we kind of 80% concluded was the skull of a pygmy hippo. And how a pygmy hippo got there, nobody can guess. In fact, the last 20% of doubt was that it's impossible for the pygmy hippo to be there in the first place. But anyway, it looked like a pygmy hippo skull. It had all the markings. We checked it up. Some scientists agreed it was a pygmy. So that created a lot of discussion all by itself. We found crocodile bones down there, really old crocodile bones. And this is what, to me, was really fascinating, is all the different things we were finding down there. We found a fish that has no eyes at all. And like some cave fish, they concluded that these particular fish we found, even small fry, had no eyes to begin with. They were born with no eyes. And they were living off the bat shit that were coming down from the cave. So that was an entire little ecosystem working there. And we found a pocket, an air pocket, where the roof was full of bat. Yeah.
This one?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that one. You can see there's no eyes then. It's pure white. Really fascinating little fish there.
And what's the name of it?
And did
they identify it?
They did, but don't ask me the name of it because I can't remember.
Okay. You're normally good with this stuff, but okay.
you're a cave diver, not a bot, right?
Yeah, I'll get back to you with the name of that particular fish, but it was quite a fascinating fish. But we also found an air pocket in there in which we went up into, and then there were thousands and thousands of bats in there, and then none of us could work out how the bats were getting in there, because we put our torches over the entire roof and we couldn't see any place where the bats were getting into. Obviously, they must be getting into somewhere. And the scientists spent ages walking around the area on the surface trying to see where bats were coming in and out and stuff like that. So during the dive, we actually created a lot more questions than we had when we first went in there. So that was the fascinating part of it. And this is what draws me to cave diving. I find it far more interesting where there's life in there, there's things happening in a cave, and not just swimming through a tunnel full of water as such. You could be anywhere, but if you're in a situation where you're finding new stuff, you're finding bones, you're finding new species of fish or stuff like that, that to me is the draw card for this type of diving. Yeah.